Hi class, welcome back. Now we are going to have another new lesson for today, and that is the nervous system neuron. In our previous videos, we were able to discuss about twins and the chromosomal abnormalities such as sex-linked abnormalities and non-sex-linked abnormalities. Now let's have another new lesson, and this is the nervous system neuron. Alright, now let's define first nervous system. The nervous system is an organ system containing a network of specialized cells called neurons that coordinate the actions and transmit signals between different parts of the body. So the nervous system is composed of a lot of neurons, and these neurons are the ones responsible for actions and transmitting signals from the different parts of our body. Now let's define neuron. A neuron or a nerve cell is the basic structural unit of the nervous system. It is the smallest part of the smallest structure in our nervous system. Neurons are specialized to transmit information throughout the body. Neurons are responsible for receiving and giving signals across the different parts of our bodies, from our senses to the brain and from our brain to our senses. These highly specialized nerve cells are responsible for communicating information in both chemical and electrical forms. So these neurons communicate in chemical reactions and in electrical forms. That's why if you're going to ask why psychology majors or if psychology students have to go through organic chemistry and inorganic chemistry or biochemistry subjects, is that because our very smallest structural unit in learning psychology requires chemistry. That's why we are going to study chemistry as well, because neurons both interact in chemical and electrical forms. In electrical forms, that's why we need to also learn about physics. Again, our neuron interacts or communicates in both chemical and electrical forms. Now let's see the parts, or let's check out the parts of a neuron. So as you can see here, this is an example of a neuron. At the top, you can see a small circle. That is the nucleus. It's at the center of the cell body. The one that is surrounding it is what we call the cell body. And the small hand-like or finger or roots-like materials or branch-like materials are called dendrites. The long kind of elastic is called the axon, and at the bottom is the synapse. Let's see another one. Now here is an in-depth structure of a typical neuron. So again, that is the nucleus at the center of the cell body. The dendrites there are stem-like materials, and the cell body is connected via axon to the myelin sheaths, and it also has these nodes of Ranvier, and at the center of the myelin sheaths is the Schwann cells. And at the end of the neuron, we have the axon terminals. Alright, let's continue. A neuron, or a nerve cell, again is the basic structural unit of the nervous system. It is made up of a cell body or soma, dendrites, axon, and the axon terminals. Let's start with the cell body. The cell body contains the nucleus that is centrally located and produces all the proteins for the other parts. It is regarded as a trophic center because it serves as a center for nourishment. So as you can see a while ago in our image, the nucleus is at the center of the cell body. The cell body is the bigger part. So the nucleus is the trophic center because it contains all the nourishment that a neuron has. Next, we have the dendrite. Dendrite is described as cellulipetal, which means that it conducts neural impulses to the cell body. So the dendrite, also known as the cellulipetal, are the ones who receives the neural impulses from another neuron. So it gets all the nerve impulses, and then the neuron itself receives it and then pass it to the cell body. Let's continue on the dendrites. Like what I've mentioned a while ago, dendrites is part of the cell body. It looks like branches. Alright, so now dendrites branch out in tree-like fashion and serve as the main apparatus for receiving signals from other nerve cells. Like what I've mentioned a while ago, dendrites are the ones who receive nerve impulses from other neurons. Because when you see the whole nervous system, it composed of a lot of neurons connecting with each other. And the ones that connects the neuron to another neurons is through the dendrites and the axon. The dendrites are the ones who receives the signals or the impulses from other neurons. It looks like tree-like branches. So again, dendrites are the ones who receives the neural impulses from other neurons. Next, we have the axon. The axon, on the other hand, is described as cellulifugal, which means that it conducts neural impulses away from the cell body. The axons of many neurons are covered with myelin sheath. This is a white tissue with covering, which makes the transmission of the impulse faster. Contrary to the dendrites, the axon now conducts neural impulses away from the cell body. So if the dendrites receive the neural impulses to the cell body, the axon now will release the impulses down to the cell body, away from the cell body. And from the axon, the axons of many neurons are covered with myelin sheaths. These myelin sheaths make the impulse move faster across the neuron. Again, the dendrites receives, the axon pulls it away from the cell body. The axon terminals or the end brush are knob-like structures known as synaptic knobs or terminals. Within the knobs are synaptic vesicles containing neurotransmitter substances. So once the dendrites receive the neural impulses, these neural impulses also have neurotransmitters. Then these neurotransmitters or these impulses passes through the cell body down to the axon, and then this axon will release the neural impulses that contains the neurotransmitter substances. And from there, it passes to another neuron. These substances play a significant role in the transmission of nerve impulses from one neuron to the next neuron at the junction known as the synapse. A synapse is the gap between neurons. So when there are two neurons, there would be a small gap there, and it's called synapse. Now, let's identify the three types of neuron. First, we have the sensory neurons. Second, we have the motor neurons. And third, we have the interneurons. Let's start first with the sensory neurons. Sensory neurons carry information from the sensory receptor cells throughout the body to the brain. Sensory neurons are the neurons coming from our different senses. So the different senses that we have, or the sense organs that we have are the eyes, the nose, the tongue, the skin, and the ears. So all information or all the stimulus or the information that we receive outside are passed to our brain through the sensory neurons. The sensory neurons then carries all the information to our brain. So when we touch a hot object, our sense of touch, the neurons responsible in our sense of touch will carry all the neural impulses to our brain. So that's when we realize that that object is hot. So that neuron responsible for that impulse is called the sensory neurons. Next, we have the motor neurons. Motor neurons transmit information from the brain to the muscles of the body. Now, once we received the impulses from our sensory neurons, our brain now releases impulses down to the muscles of our body that makes us react. Like my example a while ago. When you touch a hot object, our sensory neurons will then send impulses to our brain, and then our brain will send motor neurons that will transmit information from our brain to us, for our body, to the muscles, for us to react. That's the motor neurons. Lastly, we have the interneurons. Interneurons are responsible for communicating information between different neurons in the body. So, our interneurons, these are the neurons between the sensory neurons, the motor neurons, and other kinds of neurons that are responsible in our body. They are at the middle. So those are the types of neurons: the sensory neurons, the motor neurons, and the interneurons. Now let's continue. Let's go to the neurotransmitters. The neurotransmitters are chemical substances responsible for transmitting impulses from one neuron to another. Like what I've mentioned a while ago, neuron carries neurotransmitters. Now let's see and find out what are the neurotransmitters. Let's go to the first one. The first neurotransmitter is acetylcholine. Or ACH. Acetylcholine is responsible for the stimulation of muscles, including the muscles of the gastro-intestinal system. Also found in the autonomic nervous system and sensory neurons, and has a part in the REM sleep, or the rapid eye movement sleep. It facilitates learning and memory as well. So acetylcholine can be felt in our gastro-intestinal system. They are responsible also for our sensory neurons and has a part in our sleeping, the rapid eye movement. They are responsible also in our learning and memory as well. Sometimes if we tend to forget something, or we are having a hard time learning something, the acetylcholine neurotransmitter is responsible for that one. Next, let's go to serotonin. Serotonin, also known as 5-hydroxytryptamine, it acts both as a chemical messenger that transmits nerve signals between nerve cells and that causes blood vessels to narrow. So they are nerve signals as well. They carry nerve impulses, and also they make our blood vessels to narrow. Now, serotonin changes of it actually affects our mood. Let's see. Changes of serotonin level in the brain can alter the mood. Low serotonin levels are believed to be the cause of many cases of mild to severe depression, which can lead to symptoms such as anxiety, apathy, fear, feelings of worthlessness, insomnia, and fatigue. So when a person said to be suffering with um, with clinical depression, that person might have problems with the levels of his or her serotonin. Because again, low levels of serotonin can lead to depression. That's why some people need to drink antidepressants. And this is also the reason why depression, as the clinical diagnosis depression, is not only in the mind, because we have the neurotransmitter serotonin. And with serotonin, with the good levels of serotonin, one can feel happiness, normal levels of mood as well. And also, low serotonin can leave someone with generalized anxiety disorder, hypochondriasis, and many more. This is because of the low serotonin levels. So again, when a person is depressed or a person is said to be suffering with clinical depression or any mood disorders, this is due to serotonin. Also, bipolar disorders and many more mood disorders, one of the factors that affect them is the levels of their serotonin. So that's for our serotonin. Next, we have the dopamine. Dopamine has an effect on emotion, perception, and movement. Therefore, it is an essential chemical substance for the healthy functioning of the central nervous system. Oversupply of dopamine may lead to schizophrenic reaction, while undersupply may cause Parkinson's disease. So dopamine in here affects our emotion, how we perceive our environment, and our movement. So if there is an oversupply of dopamine, meaning there's a lot of dopamine within a person, that causes schizophrenia or schizophrenia, or the disorder which one experiences hallucinations, delusions, and many more. However, undersupply may cause Parkinson's disease, or Parkinson's disease can be described as the continuous shaking of the muscles of a person. So this happens even though the person tries to stop the shaking. Alright, again, that's dopamine. So if a person is said to be suffering with schizophrenia, schizopersonality disorder, and other psychotic disorders, they are said to be suffering with the oversupply of dopamine. So that's why they need medications as well, like Haldol and many more. Now let's go to GABA, or the gamma aminobutyric acid, GABA. GABA is the chief inhibitory neurotransmitter and plays an important role in regulating the neuronal excitability throughout the nervous system. It actually decreases the activity of the neuron, which in turn may decrease level of anxiety. So the GABA in here are the ones who regulates the neuronal excitability of the neurons in the nervous system. So they are the ones who are responsible to make the neurons excited and move more or transmit information more. So low levels of the decrease the activity of the neurons, which might be low neuron activity, may result to decreased level of anxiety. Next, we have the norepinephrine. It's both a neurotransmitter and a hormone. Too little of this may lead to depression, and too much causes hyperactivity. It also affects eating and sleeping. So one of the reasons why other women experiences premenstrual depression or postmenstrual depression or postpartum depression is because of the norepinephrine. Because it's not only a transmitter, but it's also a hormone. This one affects our moods, like depression. Others can cause depression, sadness, and many more. And also, it affects our eating and sleeping behaviors. So in women, for example, if you are about to have your period, norepinephrine acts there. That's why some women tends to feel lonely, sad, or wants to eat a lot of chocolates during their monthly period. One of the neurotransmitter that is responsible for that is norepinephrine. Again, norepinephrine are responsible it's a hormone and responsible for depression, and too much of it causes hyperactivity. It also affects our eating and sleeping patterns. Now let's go to epinephrine. Epinephrine, it also a neurotransmitter and a hormone. It affects metabolism rather, of glucose, energy release during exercise. So epinephrine in here, too low, whenever you eat, it is the one that is responsible in converting these materials to glucose, and it releases during our exercise, or during every time we exercise. So that's epinephrine. All right. So that's for our lesson today, the nervous system neuron. So if you have any questions, please let me know. We have our own Facebook Messenger chat box. Please drop your questions there and I will answer it. So that's it for now. Thank you and see you on our next video. Thank you for now. Bye!